No, I mean, architecture is political. We gotta add that stuff.
Indeed.
We're tearing down communities to build multifamily, and you have to understand we are creating displacement. You're displacing Black and brown folks, and they don't come back.
Half of this podcast would be dedicated to the history of Tyler House, my journey and my discoveries, and hey, I'm gonna solve this housing problem.
Hey guys, what's up? My name is Melissa Daniels. This is the Architecturalist Political Podcast where Black and brown folks talk about architecture. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and be part of my storytelling. I want to start off by saying this is the 100th episode of Architecturalist Political. And what a great way of celebrating this 100th anniversary with my longtime friends and new one. Thank you all. I usually do a separate intro in the beginning, but I'm not going to do that this time around because it's 100 and I'm trying something different. So we're going to do intros. I'm going to start with the oldest person that I've known. Like, we've been friends forever and a half. We're going to do it in that order. So at first I met Morina, and through Morina I met Carol, and some way, somehow I met Katherine. I can't remember the first time I met Katherine. And then I met Lauren, and then Lauren was like, hey, I'm getting married to this guy named Nick. And then I met Nick. And then now in 2025, I'm now meeting Taylor, Makenzie, Cheryl, Leslie. So that's the order. So
Good morning. This is Morina Peterson. I'm a senior project manager at HDR and also the DC NOMA president. And I am excited to be here. And actually, Melissa, we met at an AIA event and introduced by Danny, I think. No, Anthony. It was Anthony. And I find out we went to the same high school. So that was exciting. So
different times.
Yes.
Even though that the high school we went to was super small.
Yes. So I know Katherine and Nikolas. And so a couple years ago, I was asked to be on the jury. I mean, I knew about the scholarship already. And so it was an honor to be part of that.
Okay. Carol?
Yes. Hi. Good morning. Well, I am a senior project manager with the Architect of the Capitol, and I've been with them 5 years. And my kind of interaction is I met Morina on my first day at work at ZGF. That was quite a while ago now, 2006. And then quickly got to meet Melissa. And then I really don't remember if it was Katherine or Nick first. And then I met Lauren. So then, and I have been a previous judge for these scholarships a few years ago. And I've also been a active committee member with the Black Women in Architecture brunch. So I've been doing that now for like the last 6 or 7 years. I think I've been a committee member on the brunch.
All right. Katherine?
Morning, I guess, everyone. Hi, everyone. Katherine Williams. So I am a director in the Capital Projects Department at Georgetown University, architect by training, and one of the founders of the scholarship. And the scholarship was created out of a memorial to our friend. And then, we've, like Carol said, we've been doing this brunch event and have used the proceeds to fund it. And so that's how I know most everybody here. Although, Melissa, I think we met through probably Kathy and Barbara. And so, yeah, that's me.
I think so, yeah. All right, Nick.
Nikolas Hill. Some of my favorite people shorten my name, but Marita always keeps it up. Boy, his name is Nikolas, all 3 syllables. Saying that I work at the Kingdom of Morina Peterson, otherwise known as HDR. Been there for this will be my 4th year in October. Long career working in architectural design firms, but the last 8 working on the EA side in the transportation sector. So currently focused on vehicle operations and maintenance facilities. I'm a facility design manager, essentially a PM. I also PM other multidisciplinary transportation projects. So architectural career is how I know pretty much everyone here. My wife, Lauren Hill, also knows a lot. All of you also is how I directly met Melissa. But Katherine, you were coming down to San Antonio for AI purposes. And Lauren was also doing work with AI Maryland. So met you all through that way. And Lauren and I are 10-year wedding anniversary this year. have a little knucklehead Nixon that's 9. So yesterday was Lauren's birthday, so celebrate her. And also through running around DC NOMA, met Carol, and met Morina probably one of the times we went to stands where Melissa probably brought over there. So yeah, that's the crew.
Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. So Taylor Latimer. I work at OCA Architects. I've been here for about 3 years, architectural designing. Still new in my career, so I would say I've been working in the architectural fields for about 8 years or so, but that's me counting internships since I started. Yes, and then I'm also the New Jersey NOMA president. And my connection to the scholarship, I'm really big on the network and family. And so I joined the Riding the Vortex Facebook group. And so I'm always trying to connect to people and find new ways that I can have a support system. So I've always checked in on that group and looked in Black women in architecture. The brunches, I would try to join those if I could. And they posted about this scholarship, and this would be perfect for me. So that's how I got connected.
Thank you. Makenzie.
My name is Makenzie Elam. I am originally from Durham, North Carolina. I currently work in Charlotte, North Carolina. I saw it in a Facebook group a couple years ago when I wasn't sitting or planning on sitting at the moment for my exams. When I kind of bookmarked it in my head, and then I saw it again in a different Facebook group, and I was like, maybe I should apply. We'll see what happens.
Cheryl.
Good morning, you guys. I'm Cheryl Dixon, originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I currently live and work in Washington, D.C. for the federal government. It's a fun time right now. How did I hear about the scholarship? They're in DC and just kind of in the DMV. They have a great network of the NOMA chapters there. So DC NOMA, Be More NOMA, and then NOMA VA. The chapter's kind of in Northern Northern Virginia. And there always was talk of like, oh, you have to go to this brunch supporting Black women in architecture. Oh, there's scholarship opportunities. They're honoring this professor who used to practice architecture. And there just was always a lot of talk around it. And then similar to Makenzie, once I got to the point of like, okay, let's really sit for these exams. Let's kind of get serious. It was very supportive or very encouraging to know that there was support financially in doing this. So there's plenty of resources and study groups, but then this also is a very large financial undertaking. So it was very great to know that there was a resource there to also support fiscally.
Leslie.
For sure. Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Ponce-Diaz. I'm currently based in Boston, but I was born and raised in Kansas City. That's where I'm from. And yeah, I am moving out of Boston soon. But I've been living here for the past 2 years. I went to grad school over here. And I heard about the scholarship through the Boston NOMA newsletter. And I kind of forgot how it came to be, but I was just looking through in the summer, like different opportunities because the internships that I was going to do or the programs got canceled because of the federal administration. Yeah. And Boston NOMA had different opportunities and one of them was the scholarship. And so, yeah, I applied and focused on studying this summer instead of the other opportunities I was going to do. So, yeah.
Thanks. So, Katherine, Nick, you want to give a brief synopsis of the scholarship?
Nick, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll do the personal if you want to do the logistical. I think as Melissa, as your podcast viewers will see, there's a lot of collegiality amongst us. We're a crew. We've known each other for years now. I think that level of personability comes across in the scholarship and our connections to Desiree. I met Desiree through NOMA, probably at the Detroit NOMA conference. I can't remember which one. And it just stayed in touch. She was out in DC, and then the other people on the committee, Nakia Strong, Richard Leal, are all friends. The firm I was working with in DC we were working on a DCPS project at Stanton Elementary with Little, the firm that Desiree was working for. Saw her every day, So it was really cool to have a good friend that, it was also, turns into a colleague. So yeah, very sorry that she passed, but I think the personal aspect of it is to highlight the values that she had in architecture, the values that she had in her life, the interests that she had, because again, none of us know the time. That's just a simple way of putting it. But the connections that we have, we're going to keep that person uplifted and make sure their story is continued to be told. So that's what we tried to do for the first scholarships in 2018. Before that, did a race. I didn't participate in because I'm too much of an athlete. But again, we stay in touch with Desiree's family. I think the people that are involved on the scholarship committee for as judges knew Desiree, worked with Desiree, some of her friends. So it's a family affair, to put it simply. But the work that we do is wonderful. And Katherine, I know you can go into a lot of that.
Yeah. So I think, and I had to check the date because I was like, I don't remember 2015, 2016. But yeah, I was actually, but Desiree passed in 2015 and we had done the brunch. That was the first year of the brunch actually as well. And the BWA brunch is really a networking event that I started with a couple of folks, really just to get people in the same room, because I felt like as Black women in architecture, we were doing a lot of things, but a lot of people didn't know each other and didn't like have already like Rolodex of people that they could call for like resources, whether it was like starting a firm or, getting promoted in a firm or getting projects or whatever like that. So that was the impetus for the event. And then after the first couple of years, we started getting sponsors and we had additional money and, talking to a couple of friends like Nick and Melissa, we thought of it as a way to use those proceeds. And at the time, not a lot of firms were paying for exams or partial or whatever like that. And that was like one of the barriers to get people licensed. And so we really wanted to try to address that. And so we had the proceeds from the brunch and started to put those together to be able to do a scholarship for the exams as a way to honor Desiree, something that was important to her as far as being an architect and being able to help others through that. When we first started, we didn't have a lot of money, so we were giving partial scholarships. Now that we are 6 years in, we've built up a fund. And I should say that the NOMA Foundation was our first fiscal sponsor because we didn't have a 501c3 or anything like that. And we, wanted to make sure that we were doing everything correctly and legally. And so they collected the funds for us. And over time, we built up the funds there. And so now we give full scholarship, basically pay for the 6 sections of the exam. So, every recipient walks away with that amount of money, that they can use towards the exams or to help them buy study materials. And I will say that we also got a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation through one of our collaborators, and that also helped supplement. So that helped fund scholarship for the last 3 years, that $15,000 award.
Thanks. I want to get into the people who make it possible to select these winners, and that are the volunteers that we seek out. Both Carol and Morina have served at different times. What has been your experience as a juror for this scholarship? I'm going to start with Carol.
Yeah, it was several years ago. I don't think we had a lot. It was probably newer in the scholarship, us receiving applications for scholarships. So it was probably in the newer, earlier stages. So we only had probably a handful of candidates at the time to review from. And it was a difficult process in that you wanted to give to everyone and they all presented themselves as qualified. And we just had to really discern who was really standing out and who was really showing the energy and enthusiasm and kind of sparked the spirit of, who Desiree was and really showing themselves as truly interested in the profession or presenting as goals that they had for themselves for where they wanted to take their degree, where did they want to go within the profession. I always find it very difficult to judge myself personally because I want to see everyone get something. So that's what always makes it difficult. I think we had a great group of young women who were applying and it was a difficult decision, but I think we selected the right ones for that year's scholarship.
I agree with everything that Carol said. I also want everybody to win, and having the NOMA category so that there's an opportunity for the guys to participate as well has been nice. I also like to see really qualified candidates who are qualify under 2 of the different scholarships because it gives us more categories, because it gives us more flexibility. But most of all, I think it is, as Carol said, that having that passion, being involved in the profession, in particular because Desiree was involved with DC NOMA, that is something, or NOMA in general, being involved in NOMA is something that I personally look for.
Carol, when you were in there, did we have all those categories at the time or?
No, we had 3 categories. Trying to remember, we did not include adding men at the time. So that was not one of the categories, but we had one where we were specifically looking for someone from the Harrisburg area where Desiree had been born and raised. We were looking for someone, I believe, who showed an interest in real estate or wanted to take her career in that direction or has some experience there, is like real estate development or commercial architecture, that thinking, which was something Desiree was really interested in as well. And then just generally a young woman who had just shown a passion in architecture, seeking to further her career and do her exams. I think those were the 3 categories at the time.
Yeah, I can specify a little bit. So we started out with just the Black women in architecture, the Harrisburg, where, like, as you said, Desiree was raised, and then the DC one, because that's where she was living, and that's how most of us knew hers, through DC. And then we added the NOMA category a few years later. One, because, the NOMA Foundation was sponsoring it. And I think most of us, not all of us, were NOMA members. And we felt that opened up the pool a little wider, because basically all you had to do is be a NOMA member, right? So whether you were Black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever, and were a NOMA member, you could apply for the scholarship.
All right. Morina, your take?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, having to have it be as open and inclusive as possible is great. I think that having the different categories being so specific to her life is also very meaningful, which is one of the things that I've appreciated about the scholarship from the beginning. Because it wasn't just, we have funds, we're going to do this. It was very intentional about, we have funds and we want to support people who are following in her footsteps and continuing her legacy. And so that's always been something that I appreciated about the scholarship.
When you guys were reviewing the applications and the different categories, how did you guys look at it holistically? Or did you guys divide, like, hey, I'll take the NOMA one or you take, and was there any cross, like, hey, why did he apply for this? He should have applied for that type thing. Did that ever come up?
We all review them all, which is great because I think it helps to level the playing field in terms of the applicants. So everybody's using the same measurements to evaluate. We do sometimes wonder, we do look at who applied for what, but are also looking at what categories they fit in. So like I was saying earlier, sometimes you might have somebody who's a DC NOMA member or a NOMA member also from Harrisonburg. So they qualify for 2. So it's an interesting opportunity to make sure you give out all the funds to the best qualified people.
Melissa, I also add, I think with the honorable mention, it's not a participation trophy, but I think sometimes you get people that are more suited for, again, everyone that submits is valuable, right? Everyone brings something to the table, their application shines, but they might not be quite to the level of one of the awards. I think the ability to still support them along their path is something that's honorable mention that comes into play, and that's really been a key throughout the years.
Because we want to give everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we have, like, as Nick said, we have, when the jury has come to us, because, like, we aren't the committee, only one of us serves as the chair. The rest of us are not on the jury. I personally, like, keep my hands off of that because I'm so involved that I don't want to have to judge applications. And I know a lot of the people, so I don't want to be, like, insert that bias or whatever like that. But if the jury comes to us and says, hey, we only had 4 awards planned to give, but there's this 5th person and we really want to give them an award, we have, like, made the decision, sure, let's do an honorable mention because they're a great candidate and we want to help support people in their journey.
All right. Taylor, it is now your turn, ma'am. Why architecture? Now, it's getting to know you now. Why architecture?
Why architecture? Well, I didn't have previous experience in architecture growing up. I know some people, they had an architect in the family or they were super interested in architecture from childhood. That wasn't me, to be honest. I was good at math and physics, and I said, well, and I was really creative. So I was like, yeah, you combine all of 3 and architecture. Took some aptitude tests. I was like, this seems to work. And I was introduced to this great architect in New York, Stephen Wilder, and took me under his wing. And he said, this is what architecture is. This is what it's about. He gave me my first internship And that's how I got introduced to architecture. And it's been an interesting, I'll say, to say the least, experience since then. But I chose to stick with architecture really because I realized how important it is that architecture is and the built environment and the effects that we have on the people that are living in these environments. I realized the impact that I could have on making lives better, and especially minority lives better with architecture, putting in my input on really making people comfortable, right? Like a lot of times I look around, this world isn't built for us, right? Like it doesn't have us in mind. And so that's why I've chosen to stick with architecture. Is that like I'm trying to create a world that is really, it has us, the minorities in mind, the people that are unheard, the people that aren't getting a chance to speak up. Like we're making an impact, we're listening to them, we're hearing them, we're building a better place.
How has your architecture journey been, Makenzie?
I would say it's been interesting. Undergrad, I think I had a different experience in comparison to others. So I went to UNC Charlotte, and then my cohort was mixed. I think there was like we started off with 60, ended up being 45, but out of those 60, there was like 10 African-American students. And so I kind of clicked with 5, and the 5 of us rode to the finish line together. But looking at like the year before us and then like the year after us, like the number was like 4 Black students. So we're like 3, and there was even 1. So I think that was kind of supportive, because if it hadn't been for them, I genuinely don't know if I would have finished, because there's not a lot of people who look like me in the industry that I was seeing going through school. Like I didn't have a Black professor until like grad school. So that was interesting. And then I graduated during COVID. So that was also another obstacle, trying to find an internship when no one's really hiring or looking for interns during COVID, because they don't have that much work, or they're just on a hiring freeze for the moment. So I ended up going back to school to get my master's of urban design. And then I had an internship after that. And then that kind of led me into going back into architecture to the firm I'm at now. I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, I can do this. My direct supervisor is extremely supportive, whether it be for a scholarship or me wanting to mentor other like high school students or different things. I think that's part of the reason why I've stayed where I am. But I think that's also my motivation. Like, I've been supported to get to this milestone. How can I support the next generation of students as they not necessarily struggle, but as they face obstacles getting to the point I am?
Thanks. Cheryl?
My path to architecture, my current path within architecture has been a bit of a roller coaster, the ups, the downs, the twists and turns, going backwards sometimes. I grew up around the built industry, I guess you could say. Design build primarily. A father who studied architecture and then worked in construction, and just tagging along with projects, tagging along on the weekends with him to Home Depot, and just kind of like, I want to build things, but then maybe be a bit creative. And then in high school, that led to me deciding that I wanted to study engineering and applying to engineering programs, and even starting off in college as an engineering undergraduate and hating it, and then saying, okay, let's start with architecture. Let's kind of take a step back, really assess where we want our career to go. So ended up attending Tuskegee University, or that's where I received my undergraduate degrees, a Bachelor of Architecture, and then a Bachelor of Science in Construction Management. So those engineering credits weren't a complete fail. They went to my construction degree. And during my time in undergrad, I interned with a variety of contractors, general contractors, and construction management firms and groups, thinking that this would
help within architecture. Like, hey, I kind of understand, or I know what they're looking for. I want to bring this interdisciplinary approach and just kind of help solve the issues between contractors and architects and really just work through that. And it was a bit advantageous, a bit optimistic at times, because it was challenging. And once I wanted to return to traditional architecture, trying to interview and show that worth and value in the times that I spent on sites and working with projects and seeing it kind of holistically, it does help within my career now. So following graduating, working a bit with some general contractors, I worked with a small private architecture firm, did some designing for a large general contractor, transferred to a very large architecture firm, spent some time there, and then wanted to really just kind of drive the boat and just lead from a managing perspective. So now I'm a facilities manager with the federal government, managing their portfolio of leases and spaces and all their changes they're going through now. But it's incredibly helpful, my journey, in that when we have office renovations or whatnot, like I understand the design aspect. And then just from a building and building management standpoint, like I understand those components. And now with studying or restarting studying, I have a wealth of knowledge that I like to pull from that assists and helps.
Thank you. Leslie.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, y'all. I love hearing like all the stories. Yeah, so I grew up in a household as well where my dad, he's a roofer. My dad and my uncles and everyone. The male side of my family, they do roofing construction. They've been doing roofing for so many years, like 30 years now, I think. And so I grew up around that. Like I grew up, my dad, like as he's taking me to school, I'm sitting next to roofing shingles and we're all like jumping in the back of the truck. And I'm like, and I also grew up in Kansas. So I grew up in the midst of like the city, but also a ranch life. So we have like goats and chickens and so on. So my dad and my uncles would bring materials that they would either trade with or things that were left over from the job site. And they would make like chicken coops, basically like shelters, like different types of structures for the ranch or like the small little thing that we have. And for me, seeing that, like how you could reuse wood, how you could reuse shingles, how you could reuse whatever, just kind of sparked my curiosities of like just building and construction. But I never had that knowledge. So I started off, I've always been like more of an artsy person. So I got the opportunity to go to art school for my undergrad. And that's what brought me to the East Coast from the Midwest. And then from there, I realized that I had a lot of questions around sustainability, around just labor and all these things that maybe were kind of missed in the art studio. And I didn't really feel connected with it as much. So that's how I really got into architecture. I kind of went full circle. I started looking at like what interests me and then also how I grew up. Like grew up being, like seeing the beauty in things that maybe are overlooked. So if you see, my dad is so good at like, for example, he got these tree poles that are used for the lights, like the street lights, and they're giving them away for free on Craigslist. They're just these large tree poles, but the wood can't necessarily be reused because it has a chemical that can be used for buildings. So they're just like, oh, whoever wants to take these. So he used those as columns for a little shelter to put like the tractor at the bottom. And so he kind of reused those like street wooden poles as a way for a support. I mean, that's just one example of the many things that he has done. And that's the things that in school we would learn and like, oh, that's sustainability. But for my dad, that's just being resourceful. That's just being like, I made a good deal. Like, that's just like the project of this season and like something else is coming. So, and that's how I always see it. My path in architecture has been like, yes, it's been school and it's been about like the things that I'm learning about and all these different architects. But I always seem to have a really like keen eye on seeing my family and seeing like the labor that they had to put into the field. I'm inspired by that fully. And so I would say that that's been my journey, is like in the moments when I don't feel represented or when I'm the only Latina or when we're only learning about white male architects in my architectural history class, I'm like, no. Like I have to remind myself, like, I'm here for a reason. It's because of my family and all that they've done to get me over here. At the end of the day, like, we all connect because we love our culture. I love being Mexican and American. I love the two lives that I live here. And I really value areas around immigration, migration, labor, sacrifice. Like, those things are all interconnected. Because I think there's layers around immigration that just opens different insights. And so for me, that's what I really look at. Even in architecture, like, I think a lot about that. Like, when you're designing something in an immigrant community, like, the immigrant community designs their own built environment in many ways. And so it's like, how do you learn from that? Like, how do you learn from, that person that's on the side of the street selling, ice cream and so on? Like, how can you feel inspired by, like, the life that they're already building for themselves and bring it into your own work? And sometimes people will be like, man, what are you talking about? Like, but like, for me, I'll ask myself, like, no, that could have been my uncle. That could have been my auntie. Like, that's my dad on top of the roof making that new, like, condos, So for me, I think about that. Like, that's the first thing I always think about. Like, who are the people building? What's the labor going on? And so we learn from each other. Like, we'll pick up, like, different things and it'll be a really interesting conversation for sure. Yeah, I would say it's taken me a long time to get there. It took me 7 years, but yeah, I'm still working through it as well. So yeah, that's my path in architecture.
It's always, I've been talking to people for a while, and there's always this string of struggle, the multiple degrees that we tend to get. I love hearing first generation. I love hearing individuals who have siblings or parents or uncles or some thread, some connection to the built environment that inspires us and makes us keep going. I love hearing stories. So thank you all for sharing. How has your journey been with the exams?
Well, that has also been very interesting. So I originally had this plan. I'm going to knock out all these exams in 2 years. It'll be quick, done. But life comes into play and things happen. So I took one exam, and actually I took that first exam, and after I finished it, I just knew I had failed the exam. I was so upset. I was crying. Like, the emotions were everywhere. There's like a week period of time before they released the results. And I checked the results just to make sure I really failed it. And I didn't. I passed. And
yay.
Yeah. So, but it was weird, right? Because I had already gone through all of the emotions of, I failed this exam. So I was all set for like this whole week. Just my family was worried about me, or like just, in the dumps. And then they were like, oh, I passed? Okay. So even though I passed that first exam, I still almost had to bounce back from like that emotional roller coaster I kind of set myself through. I was talking to somebody else the other day. I wanted to work on a project with somebody, and I realized I couldn't help them with this project because I wasn't licensed. New Jersey actually is one of the only states that there's certain exceptions in certain states where the size of the project, you can get away with not being licensed. But New Jersey is the one state that does not allow that at all. So I could not help this person. And that was, again, my kick in the butt. Like, okay, you know what? You were on this journey. Remember, you need to finish this. So I'm back in my studies and trying to take 2 more fairly soon. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on myself, because I also realize that pressure can make this journey really difficult. I'm trying to give myself grace. So the journey has been a bit rocky, but I'm feeling better about it. How I know this is what I need to do. I need to get it done.
How'd you hear about the scholarship?
It was through the writing the Vortex, that Facebook group. They posted about it, and also being in NOMA, being the New Jersey NOMA president, I kind of have to be in the know of a lot of the scholarships and things that are happening so that I can pass this forward to my other members. So in passing it on to other members too, I was like, well, I can apply to this.
So you were minding your business one day and you came across the Facebook group. You were in a NOMA thing and you're like, oh my goodness, a scholarship. I need to apply. Did you guys apply for multiple scholarships? Because I know there's several categories. So what made you guys decide what category? I'm going to start with Cheryl this time.
I believe I did go for multiple categories. I kind of am the type of person very driven to where it's like, the only one that can tell me no is myself. And then it's like, oh, no, other people can't tell you no. And it's like, okay, well, how? I'm still going to keep going. I'm still going to find some other option or alternative. And so from the listing of the multiple scholarships, I found the ones that were applicable to me. And it was just like, I'm shooting for the stars. Like I'm shooting just broadly. I think this is awesome. And just in the happenstance that there's another person who's a better candidate or more qualified for another one, maybe I'll be considered for the other. So I believe I applied for like the NOMA one, just from my previous involvement in the DC NOMA chapter. And then even going back to doing some work with Atlanta, the NOMA chapter in Atlanta. And then in undergrad, working with the NOMAS chapter at Tuskegee. So just like, okay, that involvement there, I can kind of speak to that. And then being local to DC, I was like, well, I'm also in the area. So I don't know if there's someone else applying. Maybe this could also be an option. But it was encouraging, as I said before, to have that financial support specific to minority women in the profession and specific to myself, even someone in DC. So it's like, wow. And it's just it's a helpful reminder that like we're not facing this daunting beast by ourselves, or we're not incapable, or we don't have the tools. It's like, no, they're here. And in my case, they're tailored just for you, so it's kind of a nice reminder.
Makenzie?
So I know I applied for multiple, kind of like Cheryl. I was like, I might as well do as many as I can. If I don't get one, maybe there's a chance I get another one. But specifically, like for being in Charlotte in North Carolina, there aren't a lot of opportunities that I have seen for like NOMA. Like most of them, you have to be a part of AIA, and that's currently not something I'm willing to pay for right now. It's expensive, so finding other opportunities, whether it be through NOMA, because I currently do like Project Pipeline. So that's been like a strong passion for mine. So kind of focusing on something that's going to support me and help me be around people who can mentor me to get where they are. So that's part of the reason why I did NOMA. And I think I did the Black Women in Architecture. I think that was like the more, I don't think you had to be like DC or Pennsylvania. So I was like, I'll just pick these two and then we'll shoot for the moon and we'll see what happens. But I think it's just nice to have different categories so that you can recognize multiple women, multiple minorities on their journey, because no one's journey is the same. So it's just nice to see like, oh, she did that and she did that. But like we're all on the same path and similar journeys to be licensed.
Leslie?
Yeah, so I applied to the NOMA one, and I don't know, like I applied, I honestly didn't think I was going to get it. So I'm surprised I'm here, because I feel like, this summer was kind of tough. I had just graduated from grad school, and I was going to do an opportunity working with the national park, and then national park funding got closed down, so they canceled that thing. I was going to teach youth here at my school. Then there was a hiring freeze at my school, so they took out all the programs that they don't make money from, like the free ones. So that one got canceled as well. And I was like, dang, like everything that I really care about is not happening this summer, and I don't know what to do. But at the same time, like I believe a lot in rest periods, like in the fact that like sometimes, I'll try to put myself out there, and it's something in the universe will be like, no, it's not your time. And I really believe in that, like when I'm ready and when I'm not. And so I applied as a chance of saying like, if I get this, then it means it's the time for me to take a rest and other things, but focus more on maybe something I've been delaying because out of fear. And so it gave me a lot of confidence, and it also helped me look back at my own kind of growth throughout NOMA. And it's been really nice to see like just how it has also helped me find my voice in teaching, and like you said, Project Pipeline, and every summer where if I've been somewhere else, I've always found community in NOMA. And even if it's Project Pipeline students from a whole nother county, who have no idea where Kansas City is, like, it's cool to connect with them and like, yeah, just like help instill with them, like, architecture is an opportunity, engineering and all these different types of things are in, like, yeah, that you can bask in this possibility. And so I feel like that was really cool to be able to reflect through the essays and also my involvement in school and so on. And so, yeah, that's why I applied, and I'm so happy to be here. So I'm just grateful.
So actually, I fell into a few of the categories, and I was nervous at first, actually, because I didn't know if I should apply for multiple categories, or I think I didn't realize that you could apply for multiple categories. So I was trying to figure out which one, and I didn't know if I should do NOMA or if it would be considered like an unfair advantage if I'm a NOMA president or something. So, but I also fall into the Harrisburg category because I had gone to school in Pennsylvania. And then also I'm a Black woman in architecture. So I fell into multiple categories. So I went for, once I realized that I could, I went for them all.
A lot of comments on that. I will say that the Harrisburg is probably one of our more niche categories. I think initially when we started it, we had that you had to live in Pennsylvania, right, Nick? And then we changed it to you could either have lived there or have gone to school there to sort of expand the pool and try to get more people who would fall into that category. Because I think we didn't want to like give up on the category, but we also wanted to try to figure out a way to have that connection so that people could actually we could find out eligible recipients for that category. Because there have been years where we haven't given scholarships in that category and didn't have anybody apply.
It's important, but a narrow pool, shallow pool.
What I was going to just say to Taylor, I had a very similar exam, ups and downs kind of thing. I realized that when I first started, I was gung-ho and I was kind of in my bubble, and after work, I'd go home and study, and I took several exams and was passing, and I was really feeling great. And then I ended up taking an exam. Well, NCARB was in transition, so you had to have passed certain exams for it to carry over to their transitional stage. And I ended up failing an exam that basically wiped out everything. So it was like devastation. Talk about like top of the mountain and crashing down to the bottom. And it took me about a year and a half to decide to get back in it again. And I think Melissa, this architecture community of Black women is just so powerful. And through her and friends that she knew, we just pulled ourselves together with a study group. And I changed my study habits. I changed how I was approaching the exams, and, went into it again and finally made it through. But I think your story is not unique. Everyone has their journey. It is unique, I should say. And I just encourage anyone taking the exams to understand themselves, give themselves grace, like you said, and definitely kind of figure out your pace. And for me, it was making time. I had to schedule time to study. Otherwise, I kept pushing it out. And I also knew of the kind of rewards, sacrifice some awards. So I would study, but then I would know that if I studied, and I promised myself if I studied, then I could watch my favorite TV show. And then, but you have to kind of play those mind games with yourself to push through, because it is a journey.
And if you're also looking for inspiration and other people to commiserate with, or to understand other people's stories, check out one of Katherine's other ventures, ARC Stories, because that's definitely a way that helps you feel I'm not alone, whether your path is extremely long and goes through 3 different programs, or you just knock them all out. But there's definitely somebody there you can relate to. So, but I think it's the perseverance is one of the things that we really are, the perseverance and the encouragement and the plan that we're looking for when people apply for the scholarship.
Makenzie, I know you have to go soon. I just want to get your final thoughts on what would you change? What would you improve, if anything, because we all know it's perfect, but what would you improve with like the application process, the questions, the categories, anything like that?
I love the scholarship. I love that it recognizes Black women. If there's like another branch, maybe including study materials or some type of thing, because I feel like exams are one financial burden, but study materials are a second financial burden because they're textbooks, there's subscriptions, but all of those are not cheap. They're quite expensive. So like me and my coworkers, since there are a lot of us studying, we're sharing materials because each person learns a different way. So kind of playing off what other one person's strength is and kind of learning from each other has been helpful. But that's one thing that I would change, of just thinking about different resources, whether that be Amber Book or Black Spectacle, or just here's a $500 to go towards textbooks. Here are some textbooks we recommend. That's one thing. That's the current thing that comes to my mind. But I genuinely just want to say thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to meet other Black women and minority women who are on this journey, because it's kind of despairing when you look around and there's not a lot of us. And there's not even 1,000 Black women licensed quite yet. So just kind of keeping the faith and holding out hope and being strong as I finish out these last 4 exams. So yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much again, Makenzie. Going to what Makenzie was saying too about resources, I know that we actually talked about as a group, what would that look like besides just paying for NCARB? One of the things that we stressed was having no strings attached. So we don't care if you took this exam 10 times or not. Here's the money, right? And just have at it. In terms of resources like study material and so forth, there's so much stuff out there. We just didn't know what to hone in on. And like some of these things are like thousands of dollars. So if we do Black Spectacles, would that be the best one for you? Or if we do, Amber Book, these things are subscription. So 6 months, a year, how does that look like? How do you measure that? And then, again, like, does your office supply that? Like, so if you guys have any insight on that, maybe we really want to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, I previously came from a firm that provided study materials. They kind of on their private server, their drive, they had like some PDFs of presentations that were done, or things that you typically can find online. So it's not anyone else's copyrighted material, but they kind of had stockpiled that. And it was helpful to know that there was kind of this repository of area I could go to and find the items I needed. But then in not working there anymore, and no longer working or being employed with this company, it once again creates a void of like, okay, I don't have these resources. And I think they also had like a discount for some of the subscription services. So it wasn't entirely free, but there was a discount they provided, which some people found to be a great benefit. But the timing in which like it's only for so long or only for so many months. And I think I can speak for most people who have taken on the AREs. It's not a linear one-stop shop approach. There are failed exams, there's life changes, there are pauses, starts and stops, work, responsibilities and obligations. And so it's challenging to kind of consider a one packaged approach to those resources. I think financing the exams is a huge one. I would go further to say that also providing kind of like supplemental scholarships to where it's like, okay, we give the grant scholarships are all of the exams, a stipend or a fee that'll cover all of the exams. But then also for individuals who are testing and have failed a few times, here's a scholarship just for one of the exams, or some other resource in that regard. Or I think it can be a bit tricky with the subscription. So I'm not sure how to approach that, but I have heard those to be helpful. So thinking in 3 to 6 month terms to where it's like, okay, this is a concentrated amount of time that I think could be pretty well dedicated toward this effort and initiative. But I think the most flexible would be the exams, because then it's like, yeah, at your timing, when you're ready. And then like, that's one less thing. And it's a huge less thing to not have to consider and try and figure out where that resource would come from, particularly if your current firm doesn't offset the cost, or if you work for a group such as myself, that this isn't an item that they cover at all. So it's like, okay, this will be nice. I know there are some groups that will reimburse upon successful completion of your exams, but that's not always the case. So just as the candidates who are going for licensure are pretty diverse, the support is also varied. So it's helpful just to have one just for me.
It would be cool to maybe have had the opportunity to like meet the scholars like as well. Like if there was like, oh, like maybe we can meet a total of like 3 or 4 times or something, and we just check in with each other like, hey, like how are you doing like this time? I know people are busy, so and everyone's kind of in a different stage of testing, but it would be nice because I remember we recently in early August got the notification that NCARB raised the prices for the exams by $7 for each one. And like, I remember when that week happened, I was like, are you serious? Like, and I was talking with my friends about it and we're like, $7? Like, what are you like? And we were all kind of talking about it and all this stuff. And it would be cool to like have met you all and like talked about that. Like, can you guys believe that? Like, it's crazy. And I feel like there's those like moments where we can really support each other and almost help inspire one another too, because there's nothing like having like a community of people who are also, you know, in the walk of life and are able to like talk through that, because it also is a little discouraging. Like when you see an email and it's like, oh, there's an NCARB change. Oh yeah, by the way, we raised every exam plus $7 plus this and that. And it's like, dang, like I'm over here trying to make ends meet. I'm trying, you know, this scholarship is helping me, but I'm like, you know, pushing through, and then you're still gonna like add more to it. Like, and then who's to say you're not gonna continue adding to it years to come? There's those types of dialogues that I feel like we would really like connect with, that I think would be really insightful to have, especially during such like a weird time to be an aspiring architect.
I think that's a great point, and just kind of creating like a growing network of all scholarship recipients and just like a directory of people you can reach out to who's taking the exams, what they've gone through. I think that's why the Black Women in Architecture brunches are so special, because you have those moments to meet other people, to see other faces. I'm kind of spoiled in DC NOMA. There's a great representation. My network, when I moved up to DC, just grew exponentially. Like, wow, I have access to all of these very diverse designers, and there's great representation that I did not previously see in other roles or other capacities. But then also understanding that that's not the case everywhere else. And it's like, yeah, no, there are a lot of other areas and spaces that's quite lacking, I guess you could say. When I was in school in Alabama and then working and living there for a moment, I think at the time there were only 9 Black women who were licensed as architects throughout the entire state of Alabama. And of the 9, I knew 6 of them. And I was like, oh, this is heavy. Like, there's an entire state of licensed professionals, and you all are the only ones or the few ones. And just to know those women, to have their support and to be connected to them, it was like, okay, this is good. So I think a directory or just a connection, a reunion of sorts for some of the scholarship winners, that could be very encouraging, very empowering, an awesome resource.
Yeah. Shout out to Siobhan. I love that woman.
She also used to adjunct professor at Tuskegee, so that was my first time meeting her. And she's doing phenomenal. Every time I put a LinkedIn update, I'm like, you go, girl.
Yeah, I love her. I love her.
Do you have any advice for us on like outreach to maybe future candidates?
I think just continuing to push through NOMA is a good way to get the word out. I will say I was still very much under the impression that this was more for women. So I don't know if a lot of men do realize that this is a scholarship they can apply for. So I think maybe even just with how it's advertised, like the graphics or anything like that, could maybe be more indicative that this is a scholarship, not just for women, but for everyone.
Do you have any advice for anybody who's considering applying for the scholarship?
I think just to be really honest and show who you are and what you're passionate about. And I think that will shine through. If you are truly passionate about what you're saying, it will come out in in what you're writing. And I believe you jurors can probably tell where there maybe someone it might maybe, I don't want to say not as genuine, but maybe there's, how do I put this? Just a level of dedication, maybe you could say, to the field that you really want to show that may be stronger than others. And I think you can sense that sometimes. So if they're really honest, if it's really there, it'll come out in your writing.
Leslie, so was there a culture shock moving from Kansas City to Boston?
Yes, for sure. Well, I first moved to Rhode Island, so I was living over there. And yeah, definitely big culture shock. It's funny because a lot of my East Coast friends, I love the East Coast, but man, some people are not good at geography. Because like, they'll be like, Kansas, where is that? And I'm like, it's in the middle. And then they'll ask me like about oceans and all these things. I'm like, bro, I told you it's in the middle of the U.S. So it's been so fun to meet people and also learn about like, I don't know, even like the slang. Like I remember when I first came into New York, I didn't know what like cap meant, like, oh, you're capping or something. And someone told me that, like, oh, she's capping. I'm like, what? And like, so I like learned so many things. And I mean, I grew up in Kansas City, but I also grew up in a very like immigrant Mexican, community. So that was my whole world for as long as I can remember. And so to kind of open that and meet people from so many different walks of life and backgrounds, I mean, I'm so grateful for it. And it has inspired my brother to go to college. It also inspired my family to, like, my mom also applied to an adult learner scholarship to go back to community college. It's honestly been such a beautiful, like, as a first gen person, being the first in my family to go to college and graduate high school and all this stuff, like, it's been cool to see how this big shift in my life was a blessing that has, like, transcended through my whole family and also generationally. So I'm super grateful to be over here. And I mean, I don't know what comes next yet, but I know that everything was supposed to happen the way that it did. So I'm super blessed and grateful for it.
Yeah, I went to school in Boston, and it was a culture shock for me too, because it's not DC.
It's tough.
There's a lot of like Cape Verdeans. There's a whole lot of Cape Verdeans, Haitians, Dominicans, Guatemalans. I'm trying to think of all the people that it's international.
Yeah.
Which I was not expecting going there. And
it is and then it's not at the same time.
It is and it's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's super interesting. For me, like, honestly, yeah, it's been super fascinating to like experience that. But my church community is like a community that supports a lot of immigrants and refugees. And so that for me has been almost like a little piece of like home. And that's what I like will find like, this place that like really makes me feel like seen and so on. Cause even being in grad school, when you're being Mexican American is one thing because you have these two identities. And then when you meet people from Mexico, they kind of look at you like, but you're not really Mexican. And you're like, I am Mexican, but I'm also American. Like, I'm holding these things. And sometimes you don't even connect with people from your own race. And you're like, what the heck? Like that's never happened before. Like in Kansas, everybody, like we all, we're all cool. And so, yeah, it's been really interesting to be with an international level of folks who come from different walks of life. A lot of them come from generations of people that have educated backgrounds. And so, kind of like finding my own people has been a really fascinating experience. But I mean, I've learned a lot and it's made me mature a lot and just be also grateful for like the walks of life that we've had to go through in order to get where we are now. So it's been cool. Yeah.
What would you change? I'm gonna stick with Leslie. What would you change about the scholarship, if anything?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I mentioned before, like it would be nice to have that community, like to connect with different people. And so, yeah, I guess something where you can like check in with people. And I don't know, it would be also nice to learn more about previous scholars. Like, and I guess like I kind of was able to learn a little bit through some Instagram stuff, and that was super cool. I think like something that Cheryl also said that was really fascinating, that you mentioned, like, I applied, like you said, like, oh, I applied to, as many things and I persevere. And I think when you meet other people who are also applying to these types of scholarships, like, they're applying for a reason. Like, and they're putting themselves out there, and you also don't even know how many other things they've applied to and gotten the no's. And so sometimes this one yes can mean so much. And so connecting with people that like are also like hustlers, and they're in the, like, I'm gonna try whatever I can do to like pass these exams and all these things, because, we are kind of indebted by these statistics that we hear all the time. And so I think the thing I would change is like, how do we continue growing this community outside of like the check or like the, kind of the financial support? Like, how do we really like internally connect emotionally and help support each other through it all? Because I mean, one thing is paying for the exam, but another thing is like mentally and emotionally preparing yourself to saying like, dang, like if my ancestors, if my like, if my community could look at me and like, they don't even know how much I had to go through to get to just even go to the exam place and take it or sign up or, all these things. So I think those are the special conversations that I would love to continue to have through this community.
Cheryl?
I think that's a great point in just promoting the stories behind the recipients. So more than just kind of sharing a name and whatnot in the location, but having another touch point, even this podcast, having an opportunity to promote and share our stories and inspire future scholarship winners, and even beyond people similar to ourselves, but reaching beyond that to people in school, students in elementary, middle grades education, and their exposure to what the profession may look like, because I'm hopeful and optimistic that it'll be a totally different landscape by the time girls such as my niece are entering into this sphere, girls such as my goddaughter. I love how Leslie spoke of just that communal approach and the labor behind a lot of these built spaces. I'm very big on storytelling, and so all spaces tell a story, the people behind it, the communities, the neighborhoods that are there. But then I also like to think of someone's individual story, or how that space and how architecture and design ties back to that story. And so through mentorship, through working with younger children or younger individuals, through like NOMA's project pipeline and whatnot, just having that time to engage, to tell that story and to reframe this seemingly negative narrative, which is just the reality of it with regards to minorities and women within the profession. So shifting that narrative and creating more opportunities for storytelling and creating a platform to celebrate our stories. I really think this podcast is phenomenal. And just from hearing the stories of the other young women, it's encouraging. It's like, okay, we're going to do it. We got this. The profession's in great hands. And I'm also challenged to like, I'm going to keep in touch with Leslie. Like, she's going to be going through these exams just like me. Like, hey, I'm looking for that update. Same as she's looking for it from me,
Thank you so much, guys, for sharing. Any last thoughts, words, comments?
I was just going to say, like, it would be cool to see also too, like a map of like where we are at. Because like you mentioned, like being in DC and all these things, and that's cool. And it would just be cool to see like how we're all kind of connected, like places we've gone or so on, and how we'll grow, like connecting coasts together or regions together. Like, I think that's really inspiring, because it could really help inspire someone else from, like you mentioned, Alabama and something like that. Like, imagine there's someone who studied in Alabama and they're like, dang, like I see no one like myself, or I see no opportunity for me. But then them even being able to hear what you just said today in this podcast, like they would feel inspired. So I feel like, yeah, there's so many ways that we can connect geography as well.
Excited to see the trajectory of the profession as it goes forward, just knowing that myself and other individuals are kind of disruptors of the status quo that previously was. So there's now a phenomenal push for diversity, for these very broad and important stories and perspectives that are also shifting and creating impactful change. And it's just we're going to go so much further. We're going to just be so much more impactful as designers and creating and curating these spaces. So I'm excited to see what's beyond this. I remember in undergrad, it barely was 400 Black women licensed architects, and now we're around 600 or so. So it's like, okay, we're picking up steam. We have great motion behind us. So I'm just excited for what goes beyond this, and I'm super grateful for the support of this scholarship to also help me in stirring and changing this narrative.
Thanks, Melissa, for making this your 100th episode. That's really cool. And two, for bringing us together to do this. I know this is like the second time I think we've done this.
More than that, I think we've done it a couple
It's
times.
more than that.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about the scholarship at least once, and then we did another one with the winners. So maybe this is number 3. But yeah, I think I really appreciate
Always providing the platform.
Yeah, having the platform to be able to talk about this, for us to be able to talk about Desiree. I think about her every once in a while. Something will come across, and think about her and what if she was here and everything like that. So it's really nice to be able to have friends to talk about her and to be able to honor her in this way. We maintain contact with her family and some of her friends. And every year I'm like, oh, are they still going to participate? And, without fail, they're like, yes, of course. So it's wonderful to have them participate, to read the applications. They really appreciate the candidates and really being able to continue Desiree's legacy this way. So thanks to everyone here and to Melissa.
I know that we took a break doing the scholarships.
It was only 1 year.
Gap year.
I think to Morina's question, about looking at, we need to get into, what stirs the hearts of young people. What scholarships are they attracted to? How effective are we being with the DVC scholarship? Are there other ways we can get out and get the word out about the scholarship? Not only in advertisement, but really talking about the purpose of the scholarship. So yeah, kind of taking that, thinking about it, making it bigger and better than ever. It was already perfect. But, it's a wonderful process. I mean, I think for all of us that have been involved, it is personal, but it still hurts because it's personal. And, I've said before, I would rather not have to do this, right? I don't want to have to do something to remember a friend that passed. Like that's not something you want to have to do, but it's purposeful and it's impactful. And all the people that apply, all the winners that we have, the connections that we have on this committee and with the family and friends, that's wonderful, right? But there's a balance there, and you just like as you're going through your exams, you have to give yourself grace. Gotta give yourself grace doing things like this. I mean, it's not like we're just sitting back, by the pool trying to figure out how to spend a trust fund money. So, this is doing the hard work, the great work that BWA Luncheon does, and reaching out to different foundations and companies to offer funding. It's a process. It's a process, but it's not easy, and it's just good to have candidates apply, win, and then continue to preach that gospel throughout the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I will say, regarding the scholarship, I mean, we definitely have talked, I think, internally about like future, and whether that's, trying to make it more of like an endowment so that we do have funds that we're sort of building off every year. And then also, like, I think, and we haven't necessarily talked explicitly about it, but there is, like leadership, right? And how do we transition leadership? How do we bring on other people? We've definitely done that with the jury, right? And tried to bring on, some of our past scholarship winners have actually served on the jury now that we have, almost 10 years of the scholarship and everything. So that's been great to see and to bring those people back so that they can see like, oh, here are candidates who are applying just like I did. I think that's kind of the next phase that our group has to sort of think about, and where do we go in the next 5-10 years?
One thing that we had lunch with Desiree's parents I'm losing my days, Katherine. When we go up there, was it last fall? It was right around the conference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's cool. I've been in Harrisburg before. Education has changed at the high school level, but there are some cities that have stronger foundational programs for students. There are some that don't. And, I didn't have anybody involved in architecture in my life. My high school had a drafting program. My mom bought me Legos when I was younger. There we go. All right. I got a path. All right. So it is interesting seeing what pulls them into the field. Really interesting.
When you're looking ahead, there's the Black Women Architecture Brunch that's coming up in September. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that? I know, Carol, you are part of that committee.
Yeah, I'll speak briefly, and Katherine can probably fill in the blanks. The scholarship brunch this year is September 21st. That's Sunday. It's going to be held at the Gensler office. I don't recall the exact times. You should see that on some of your social media. You'll see that through Facebook, and we have Instagram, and then obviously the BWA Network website. You'll see that information that we're done our save the dates, and you're seeing it out there. We should have our registration. If it's not open, we should have it open shortly for the event. And what is really great that we have seen we've seen the growth of the Black women in architecture and the interest for women of color to come together and network and meet one another and learn from one another. But the benefit of when we were in kind of that COVID era, and we said, how can we come together and how can we bring this across states? We started doing this virtual hybrid that I think has opened up this whole network. And we're doing, we're in LA, we're in Houston, we're in, I think, Chicago, in Ohio, we've got North Carolina, we're in New York, and all of these cities are coming together to have this day of networking for Black women. But I'll let Katherine explain more if I've skipped a beat.
No, Carol, that was great. That was great. Yeah. So last year, and like Carol said, through COVID, being able to have a virtual platform, we did that a couple times during COVID. And then, I think before COVID, people had asked because the event had been primarily in DC. And we had a couple of other women who also did, outside locations, but not to the scale that we have now because of COVID and being able to, everybody learning how to use virtual platforms and whatnot. And so when people would ask me before, like, oh, can you bring this to my city? I'd be like, well, I don't know your city. I don't have your email list in your city, and be able to, figure out caterers and all that kind of stuff. And so, we've done it. We try to do a really job of like preparing people to host the event in their city. So like Carol said, it's hosted on the same day. I think this year we might have 15 locations on the day in September, and we'll join together for a virtual portion, and then everybody will jump off and do their in-person event wherever they are, like she said, all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast on the 21st.
Taylor, are you planning on doing something, or have you heard anybody doing anything?
Yes. So New York normally hosts their Black women in architecture brunch. So I attended the one last year, and then this year they'll be doing it again, and it might even be something that New Jersey NOMA joins in and helps out with. We'll be there.
Okay.
Could I just say one more thing? Yeah. So I didn't go into it in this session here, but I've had a lot of ups and downs within my architectural journey, especially in undergrad, right? Architecture school was hard. And then graduating afterwards, I graduated in the pandemic. And so that was a whole other journey. But I feel like I've been doing a lot. I've been going. I had no plan to become the New Jersey NOMA president right straight after.
You never do. You never do.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna relax, because people are always telling me I'm doing too much. I just need to sit down somewhere. And then I become the president of this organization, and now I'm mentoring people. And so some days I'm like really tired, and I'm just like, oh, I need a break. But saying all that, like I said, I've been through a lot in this architectural journey, but winning this award is really a lot to me. It's allowed me to feel seen. It's an acknowledgement that my work is actually making a difference, and it's been encouraging to keep going, because you guys believed in me. I didn't know Desiree personally, but you guys have said, and multiple times throughout this session here, you were looking for candidates who you see her spirit in, right? And everything that she was trying to do. And so that means that you've seen that in me, and that's an honor. So even though I'm like super tired some days, and this is a lot, I appreciate this opportunity here to be on this podcast. I appreciate the acknowledgement of just winning this scholarship, and I'm so grateful to you guys, and thank you for this so much. Like, thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to just also say to everybody, but thank you for all the work that everybody does in the community, because you're saying architecture can be tiring. The journeys that we've taken can be tiring. And I know for me, being involved with the Black Women in Architecture Bunch, I mean, whenever anybody, usually Carol, sends me the text saying, here's the date, or, if Katherine reminds me by email or whatever, it's on the calendar. And even if I'm one of the last people to register, I'm going, even if I don't eat, because it's just one of those events where it really renews you. And I'm glad to hear that this is doing that for you. And I think a lot of the work that you do in mentoring other people provides that for other people. And this podcast does this. I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to hear Melissa on my way to work every day. But, it's just a lot of the things that everybody on the podcast is doing just enriches so many people. I think a lot of times we forget that. We just keep pushing forward. Thank you for reminding us of that.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming up. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Architecture's Political Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it informative or at least entertaining. If you like what you heard, please share with others. You can also connect with Arcus Poly on social media, currently on Instagram as well as Facebook and Twitter. For more information, visit us on our website. It's arcuspoly.online. ARCHIPOLLY.online. I also want to thank our loyal supporters who have been with this podcast for at least 3 years. It means the world to me, and I'm totally grateful to have you part of this community. I will try to bring you the best content as possible, and I can't wait to share more amazing episodes with you. If this is your first time listening, or just like a particular episode, or all of them, you can support this podcast by going on glow.fm/ArcusPoly. Again, thank you for your support. It means the world to me, and thank you so much for listening.